we can now speak to the Shadow Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Daniel Zeichner. A very good morning to you. I don't know if you were able to hear the Environment Secretary on our programme speaking to us just 20 minutes ago, putting the case really for this report as making us more sustainable, self-reliant and putting British farmers first.
Well, if only it was. From what we've seen, this is a very, very thin document in response to a really big, impressive piece of work by Henry Dimbleby and many others in setting out what could have been in a national food strategy. And I think farmers will find themselves feeling pretty confused this morning as the government lurches from one policy position to another.
Unsurprised that you would be in favour of introducing more taxes, but you can understand why the Treasury and indeed Boris Johnson's reluctant to bring in salt and sugar taxes at this time when it's a big national conversation about the cost of living crisis.
We don't think we want more taxes on hard-pressed people. One of the things that's surprising about this report is it makes no reference to the millions of people using food banks now, and the fact, extraordinarily, that 1 in 7 of the population over the last year has had to go without food each day. And we find it extraordinary they're not addressing those kind of issues. This isn't a time to raise taxes, but there are other ways of tackling the obesity and climate crisis, and that's what's disappointing. The government really seems to have backed off from those big challenges.
What is this, Daniel Zeichner? Is this a strategy? Is this a boost or an advert for the Conservatives ahead of an election in a rural constituency? Is this going to help us in what we eat? Is this going to be fantastic for farmers? What do you make of what we're actually being presented with?
I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. What this is actually about is a by-election in 10 days' time. What it should be about is our future policy. And some of these really big schemes to tackle the landscape crisis will run for 20 or 30 years. And what's so disappointing about the announcement this morning is it does seem like it's far more focused on a by-election in 10 days' time than those much bigger challenges, which any government, regardless of party, should be trying to tackle.
The recommendations that have not been included in the strategy, things like trying to tackle obesity and encourage people to have vegetables and fruit on prescription. I mean, these are things that the government have said that they're not in favour of. They're not in favour of a nanny state. They want people to be responsible. I mean, surely it's not necessarily just because Henry Dimbleby thinks that's a good idea, it isn't necessarily worthy of being included.
It's not about a nanny state. The thing is, we all choose from what's in front of us, don't we? And the Food Foundation did some work on this, and what they found was that calorie by calorie, the unhealthy food is 3 times cheaper than the healthy food. And that means if you've not got much money in your pocket, you're always going to be choosing the unhealthy options. And that's just not fair. And research also shows, perhaps surprisingly to some people, that the people at the bottom are more concerned about the quality of their food because they know that quite often they're going to be stuck in what Henry Dimbleby described as the junk food cycle. So we've really got to break this. And the supermarkets agree, but what they needed was government action. They can't do it individually, they need to do it together. And that's what should have been done.
But can't people do it themselves? I don't understand why it always has to be down to somebody else, the government, the supermarkets. And people know what's healthy. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money to eat healthily. The argument that high-calorie foods are cheaper, that might be true, but you can shop cheaply and healthily. It's a fact.
No, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. I think your choice, I think the food industry in this country, the lobbyists, they have unearthly power. It's absolutely incredible what they do to control the way they are marketed and what they do. They are basically poisoning people, and they're allowed to get away with it. I tell you what, you go to a service station, you go up a motorway and go off, and then I go and eat healthily. Go and eat healthily.
No, but, I mean, it's probably not cheap to do that either. It's an expensive option, but what would be cheap if we lost our guest? It would be a lot cheaper to take your own food with you. I saw that. Make a sandwich. It doesn't cost a huge amount of money to buy a loaf of bread.
Well, a loaf of bread's not healthy.
It's healthier than eating a fast food snack from a highway service station. Anyway, we're arguing amongst ourselves. What's your view?
Well, my view is the evidence shows that if you give people better options and affordable options for healthy food, they will take them. Of course, we all go for the tasty stuff. And this is exactly the point that Dimbleby made. We're locked in to this cycle whereby the tasty stuff is also the unhealthy stuff. We've got to gradually change. I remember I used to drink sugar in my tea, and then I stopped. And within a few days, I no longer wanted sugar in my tea. We can all change the way we approach our diet, but you've got to make it easier for people. And at the moment, it's all too often the case that the cheaper option is the unhealthy option. And that's the thing as a nation. And also, it's costly for all of us. You know, the huge amount of money we'll be spending on the NHS dealing with the problems that come with obesity. It's costing us everybody. So that's why this was a great opportunity to take a step forward. Unfortunately, the government has absolutely shirked it, and it will take a future government, I suggest, to revisit this and actually get us on a path to a more healthy diet for the whole country. We all want that, and it would be good for our farmers too, because we do not grow enough fruit and vegetables in this country. We could do so much more.
It appears to me that what we're being just served up on our plates today are a lot of slogans. Super-sized greenhouses, super for the economy, super this, super that. I would leave it to the farmers to judge, we'd leave it to the food banks to judge, we'd leave it to the consumers to judge on all of this, but it just sounds like more talk.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. Those who've been watching these policies for the last few years will be astonished at some of the things Boris Johnson is saying today. Farmers are losing half the extra support they get from government over the next year or two. So the idea that this government is backing British farmers is for the birds, quite frankly. They've been waiting to try and understand how they're going to be paid to protect the environment, and that is a complete muddle. But basically, the government's lurching around. It's the proverbial shopping trolley with Boris Johnson. These are just words today, when what we actually needed was a serious, thought-through plan for the future. There is no plan. Whereas Henry Dimbleby actually had a plan. You didn't have to agree with all of it, but at least there was a plan.
Okay. We keep talking about this Henry Dimbleby. It's nothing to do with David Dimbleby or whatever. He owns a big restaurant chain.
Yes, the Leon food chain.
The Leon
and he was commissioned by Michael Gove to do 2 reports into food strategy, none of which got included.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.